program is suitable for general viewing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good evening to you. It is exactly 15 minutes past 8 o'clock. This is the live Real Talk. My name is Zamzam Ahmed and I'm standing in for Faisal Qasim. The Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims is an umbrella body of all Muslims organization in Kenya. Currently, SUPKEM is one of the implementing partners of the Netherlands government-funded project entitled Joint Initiative for Strategic Religious Action Project. JISRA, an abbreviation of Joint Initiative for Strategic Religious Action Project, is an interfaith partnership of the religious actors as agents of change within the civic space, including Catholic, Islamic, Protestant, interreligious and secular consortium partners focused on promoting freedom of religion and belief, FORB, in 7 different countries: Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iraq, Kenya, Mali, Nigeria and Uganda. Today on Live Real Talk, we will be tackling the issue of legislative and policy actions that discriminate against religious minorities. In studio with me, I am joined by Hassan, Kulundu, editorial and legal consultant. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. And Zamzam, thank you for having me.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today. Today we are tackling about freedom of religion and belief in religious minorities. What is religious minorities?
Now, religious minorities, as the word minorities say, one is because of their population. Two is because of the space they occupy in a country or a certain society. They are minorities. So as we know that in democracies or many societies, we have got majority people and minority people. And you realize that in democracies and many other countries, in our societies, usually the majority usually have their way, although the minority may have their say. Yeah. So you find that policies, laws are majoritarian in nature. They actually reflect the views of the majority. So minorities somehow are those whose voice, it can be heard, but sometimes they don't have sway. So that is the idea of minorities and religious minorities for that matter.
Since we are talking about freedom of religion, and Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, Article 32,
yes,
says that every person has the right to freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion. What can you talk about this specifically, this freedom?
Yes, freedom of religion is a universal right. It's one of the declarations in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. But there's something interesting about rights. You find that, like the Constitution prescribes, in fact, the Kenyan Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, has got one of the most robust Bill of Rights. But you realize one thing, that rights can be declared so by law, but sometimes the rights can be limited, either overtly or covertly. You realize as much as we have got freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, and all that under Article 32, if we go to a constitution under Article 24, what we call the limitation clause, that right can also be limited. And there's a proportionality analysis under Article 24 on how you can limit the freedom of religion. Remember that in Kenya, the only rights that cannot be limited is the right to fair trial and the right against slavery and torture. Those are the only rights that cannot be limited by any way and whatever. But you'll be strange. You'll notice that the mischief of legislation, the Constitution can say that, but you'll find that there's a lot of mischief in legislation where certain rights are even limited, where they're not supposed to be limited, they end up being limited by mischief either at level, policy level or a legislative level, despite the fact that the Constitution is clear on those particular rights.
Okay, we are talking about a joint initiative for strategic religious action project. Yes. Maybe we know that it's an interfaith partnership of religious actors as agents of change within the civic space.
Yes.
Maybe could you talk about JISRA deeply?
Very
for better understanding of our viewers.
Yes, JISRA, it's being an abbreviation for Joint Initiative for Strategic Religious Action, JISRA. Strange enough that that is the acronyms JISRA also in Arabic means what? A bridge, correct? So it means it's what does a bridge do? To fill up gaps, or where there's a gap, to ensure that connectivity, people can still connect despite being there a gap. So this is the issue of JISRA. And as you alluded to earlier in your introduction, JISRA is it's a project, a program on freedom of religion funded by the government of the Netherlands. And this particular program, as you said, is in the countries that you mentioned earlier in your introduction. In Kenya, we have got a number of implementing partners. So the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslim being one of them. Muhuri is one of the implementing partners. We have got CYU, what we call Chemichemi ya Ukweli. We have got Search for Common Grounds. We have even have Kenya Muslim Youth Alliance, who are part of the consortium. Now, under SUPKEM, the interventions that we are having, remember that the Supreme Council is the umbrella body of all Muslim organizations in Kenya. And basically, one of the mandates of SUPKEM under its constitution is to look at policy issues, to look at the issues affecting Muslims and make sure that they are addressed at policy level, at government level, at national level. So this particular issue of freedom of religion and the policies and legislative actions that discriminate against religious minorities is something that SUPKEM has been looking at. And you realize that in the process of government actions, a number of issues end up being done in the name of government actions, especially in the name of national security. If you look at those actions and policies and laws properly, you realize that actually they discriminate against the Muslim community and other minorities. Okay. I'll give you an example. And this is something that, alhamdulillah, we thank His Excellency President William Ruto the other day during the iftar dinner at State House, the issue of national IDs, especially affecting Muslims. Many people wonder, who may not know, that as much as every Kenyan is required to apply for a national ID and have a square chance, I want to believe, Zamzam, you and I, who have got Muslim names, we know what you have gone through to acquire an ID or even just a passport. There's this issue of special vetting. So when you say, and the special vetting, unknown to many Muslims, that this policy was established long time ago, so that it was kind of collective punishment for all Muslims, where Muslims or people answering to Muslim names have to undergo special vetting. How did it come? Remember the history of Kenya. One of the issues that during the Lancaster House conferences, you remember during Kenya's independence, there was the issue of the northern frontier districts, the northern part of Kenya, which is Somali dominated and predominantly Muslim. There was the issue of an attempt to secede. All right? Yeah. Now, that issue, after that, after independence, and it was decided that there was no secession by the people of the northern frontier districts, many of them, majority who are, let's say, 99.9% Muslim, there was a problem. They were profiled, say that the loyalty of the Muslim people to the Kenyan nation was doubted. So that, given that a national ID is the only document in Kenya that can determine your nationality as a Kenyan, citizenship. Yeah. Yes. Even a birth certificate, even a passport does not confer nationality, citizenship to Kenya. So, but as a national ID is the document that ensures that you are a Kenyan citizen. Now, when the loyalty of people who have got Muslim names is doubted, how was it doubted? They feel that maybe you are not Muslims enough, you are not Kenyan enough. So what happened? For you to get that document for citizenship, you have to undergo special scrutiny. Okay. And that's what is found none other than the National Registration Act, the Registration of Persons Act. Remember that when you apply for an ID, what happens, Zamzam? You are supposed to fill a form. And that form has got the information which you're supposed to supply for the registrar to register you to be an ID.
Let me cut you a bit short.
Yes.
I'll come back to that story.
Yes.
It's a bit interesting. Again, hectic for most of the Muslim.
And which is very important for them to understand, so that they understand the genesis.
That is why you're out here.
Yes.
Back to our viewer at home. Today this is live Real Talk, and like I said earlier, we will be tackling the issue of legislative and policy actions that discriminate against religious minorities. I've talked about my guest here as Hassan Kulundu, editorial and legal consultant. I am really sorry about that, but I am joined by my other guest, known as Yusuf AbuHamza, a big name, the Director Religious Affairs, SUPKEM, Nairobi County. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Seems like the jam caught you, huh?
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much.
MashaAllah. We were talking about the grievances, the grievance cases that people, mostly the Jisra, normally receive. And Hassan was telling us about the pain, or rather what Muslim people go through while they are applying for ID. Maybe we can take from there.
Yes, sir. Proceed, yeah?
I am really sorry for cutting.
No problem.
For interfering.
It's good. It's also good that I have my good colleague here who's very good in religious affairs.
Yeah.
He'll speak about the spiritual part of it. I'm speaking about the legal part of it. Now you find that when you apply, you only need to fill a form. Every other Kenyan just needs to fill that form.
Yeah.
And the information that is there is given to you. So by the time you submit your application, you know what's supposed to fill.
Yeah.
But to Muslims, apart from that filling that form, isn't it?
Yeah.
The registrar under the Act, I think Section 8, has got powers to ask you for any other information that he deems fit.
Okay.
So it's kind of a blank check. A blank check. So the question becomes this: if the registrar does not want to give you an ID, he'll ask for very impossible information. And that's why you hear about special vetting. So if the registrar, and this one only applies to people with the Islamic names, if he feels that your loyalty was doubted the way the loyalty of Muslims in northern Kenya was doubted to the nation state, he'll ask the applicant, apart from what you have brought there, they'll ask you to supply any other information which the registrar may deem fit. That's a blank check. So that kind of blank check is what has developed this discrimination. And that's why you find Muslims going for extra vetting. Yeah. For instance, an applicant in Nairobi, let us take a young man from Kibra, all right, a Dobian, goes to apply for an ID. Then they tell me, can you bring the birth certificate of your great-grandfather? Honestly speaking, where do you think that gentleman will get that? But without which, he'll not get an ID. So this is the issue, and it's in the law. And that's why we are saying that you find that the existence of that kind of law, a blank check given the registrar to demand any other information, is discriminative to Muslim people, because they are asked to give information which other people from other religions are not asked to supply.
Okay. Now to you, Bwana Yusuf AbuHamza, as the Director Religious Affairs, SUPKEM, Nairobi County. We all know that SUPKEM deals with the affairs about Muslims community, and also mandate to maybe the Hajj affairs also. Could you tell us how is SUPKEM related to freedom of religion in the country?
Thank you so much. I think SUPKEM is an umbrella organization that takes in grievances as well as issues of Muslims in every corner of the country. In regard to freedom of religion and belief, SUPKEM is well placed because part of the mandate of SUPKEM is also to look at, like I said, grievances and issues that Muslims might have. And as raised in this program are a number of pertinent issues that Muslims have been having perennially. But again, in this time, SUPKEM partnered with other bodies to look at the faith communities in general, not only Muslims, because we have issues of dress code in school, which is not only affecting Muslims, but is also affecting other people of other faiths, like the Corinos. They were in court recently. They also recently went to petition the president on the same. So jointly, SUPKEM with the other faith organizations, we were trying to come together and see what are these policies that are being used by the government officers, because for somebody to deny you an ID, or for somebody to delay giving you an ID, he is also protected under his office by a certain policy or law that is in the government. So we were trying to look at this kind of policies in relation to several matters, not only limited to IDs, but also matters of schools and also matters of the Terrorism Act and the rest.
Now I can see a mention about this dressing code, school dressing code, the national ID. I believe there are some more of this, but we will look at that later. And I want us to talk about GISRA more deeply. How does GISRA ensure that there is equal treatment and representations for all religions?
Very good. In fact, you realize that the issue of equal treatment, in fact, is a provision under our Constitution, Article 27, what we call the non-discrimination provisions of that. And they talk about equal protection and equal benefit of the law for everybody. It's there in writing. But in practice, you'll find that there are some laws actually which make nonsense of that provision. Especially, let us talk about religious. It's good. Senior here, AbuHamza, talked about also the Corinos, because GISRA is not only looking at the issue of, let's say, Muslims as minorities who are affected by certain policies. Corinos as one of them. We have also looked at this, what we call people who believe in traditional African religions, like especially if you go to the coast region, you'll find the Kayas, okay? They're actually, so they are under Article 32, freedom of religion and belief, they are allowed to participate, to believe in whatever they believe in. So you find that that one is there. But when it comes to, you find there's another law that actually makes it impossible for them to practice their traditional religions, isn't it? In this country, we've got what we call the Witchcraft Act. And there are certain of the things, you'll find that some of the regalia, some of the things that the traditional religious people use in their worship and their belief, they're actually considered witchcraft. So we have got a Witchcraft Act, and some of them, when they are found with this thing, they say that we are praying according to our religion, isn't it? But they're told, no. The things you are having are declared unlawful under the Witchcraft Act. So that one simply means that this Witchcraft Act has curtailed the freedom of belief of those kind of people. Get the point? Yeah. We even have others. We have seen, like, say in the areas like in those areas like the Kaya and other religious whatever. They use, let's say, they use certain skins of certain animals, like ostrich feathers, isn't it? Yeah. Under the Wildlife Act, being found with those kind of whatever, it's unlawful. So you find that this person now he cannot practice religion because the regalia and the instruments and the things that he is supposed to use in his worship and belief are declared unlawful under another act. So that's how legislative and policy actions discriminate against religious minorities.
Thank you so much. It's all about understanding different religion communities, right? I am told that we're going to take a short break. But when we come back, we're going to dig deep into our conversation. Don't dial that channel. We will be back shortly.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلوا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله فإن فاءت فأصلحوا بينهما بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين. إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون.
Are you looking to stay informed about the amazing stories within the Muslim community? Do you want to hear inspiring stories and insightful discussions about faith, culture, and current events? Tune in to the Muslim Insight, your weekly news updates where we tell you stories that matter to you. The Muslim Insight, informing, inspiring, every Friday from 8 a.m. with me, Zamzam Ahmed.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون.
Enyi mlioamini, munapoitwa kuhudhuria swala ya Ijumaa, fanyeni haraka kuikimbilia, muache biashara zenu, hilo ni bora ikiwa mwelewa.
Isikilizeni kwa umakinifu khutba ya Ijumaa
ili uzidi kujenga imani yako na kupata faida nyingi ya siku hii.
Coming to you every Friday from Jamia Mosque, Nairobi.
Live on Horizon TV.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back and thank you for staying here at Horizon TV. This is live real talk. We were talking about freedom of religious and beliefs of religious minorities. Before we went for a short break, we were talking about equal treatment and equal representations of all religious groups. Maybe coming back to you, I'll come back to you. Let me go to AbuHamza. We're talking about equal treatment and equal representation of all religious groups. Maybe could you tell us, are there any, what do we call, any efforts in promoting interfaith religious conversations or dialogues?
Yes, very much. For example, like SUPKEM, and even other Muslim organizations and also Muslim individuals at community level and at constituency level. There are so many efforts and there are so many joint workings amongst people of different religions and different faith. At the SUPKEM level, SUPKEM is partnering with the other faith organizations like the National Council for Churches, like the Kenya Catholic bishops, and the same also they're working with the other Protestant churches. All this is geared towards promoting the faith, harmony, and also understanding, tolerance and cooperation among the different religions that are there. Because as Kenyans, we also find ourselves in the same space, and there's need for us to work for the common interest of each religion in that. And as such, that is why a lot of efforts are there. Programs like JISRA. JISRA is a joint program between Muslims and people of other faiths, just trying to look at the commonalities. What are the issues that Muslims are facing? At the same time, what are the issues that minority religions are facing? Because we have so many other religions who feels like they are minority, not only among Muslims, but mostly among the non-Muslims, because the small Africa traditional religions, other small Christian sects that are there, who feels like being marginalized also, not recognized, or sometimes they also undergo tremendous problems when for the purpose of their identity and their places of worship. So coming together is just to listen to them also, and to know that maybe when we are complaining as Muslims, we are not alone. There are others also who are going through this.
Maybe just to add on that, on the issue of interreligious or interfaith dialogue within the JISRA umbrella. Okay. When the JISRA program was being conceptualized, in fact it was inspired by the Quranic verse which says, "We have created you differently so that you may get to know each other." Allah in his wisdom, He created different people, men and women, races, color, religions, and everything. So there's a belief that when you look at that particular verse, there's a belief that if Allah wanted everybody to be a Muslim, He would have done that, correct? Nothing would have stopped Him. If He wanted everybody to be black or white, He would have done that. But in His wisdom, He created diversity. So JISRA actually was inspired by that. So that's why we have got what we call interreligious dialogue. Let us know, what do you believe in and what do they don't believe in? Why do you hold this? And in this diversity, we end up at least having a common ground that humanity, we can live together.
Other than the interfaith dialogue, you can see that what are through the interventions, what interventions that JISRA is using in aim in promoting and sustaining peaceful and just societies where all enjoy freedom of religion and belief.
I think one of them with the programs under JISRA is to create a platform where all people from all faiths can come together. You will find that the partners that I mentioned earlier, Muhuri, Chemichemi ya Ukweli, the SUPKEM, Kikoske, and all other groups that implementing partners that are within GISRA in Kenya. They have got programs that they run, and many of them, they bring together people. Sometimes I am aware of the Kenya Muslim Youth Alliance. Sometimes they organize sessions where non-Muslims are invited to the mosque to see how the Islamic prayer is conducted. How do Muslims conduct prayers? To try to demystify the work of the whatever, what a mosque is. Because there are so many myths about mosques. Then in the other way around, Muslims are also invited to other worship places of other religions to understand how they also do they conduct their worship. So those are some of the interventions.
Yeah, and mostly that one is done to demystify the notion about the other, because there are a lot of perceptions and misunderstandings, misinformation regarding the other faith. So when we come together, we try also so that everybody should have information about what the other faith is about, so that we should not have misinformation and perceptions that are going on.
If I can remember, Deputy Kadhi's court hosted the other day on 24th, and I remember very well, I forgot the name, but he said that he went to a temple not to practice the activities which the Hindu people.
Sheikh Ibrahim Lithomi.
Thank you so much. Ibrahim Lithomi, Sheikh Ibrahim Lithomi. He was telling people that he went to a temple in order to learn what they do in the temple. And on that, we're talking about religious leaders, the collaboration between GISRA and other religious leaders, all the religious leaders. Maybe what are the role of religious leaders?
Okay. We know very well that the religious leaders, apart from, they wield a lot of power. They can move masses. They are teachers. They are people, when people have got problems, they go to them. Okay? They listen, like that. In fact, the religious leaders are a lot like what we call the Delphis oracle. They listen to everybody's problems. You find that when people have got marital problems, they go to religious leaders. When there's conflict in society, they go to religious leaders. Religious leaders hold power, political power to account. You remember, if you remember, those of who are a bit listeners in Kenya who are a bit of older years, you remember the role that religious leaders played in the what we call the second liberation, improving democracy and freedoms in Kenya. You remember the likes of the Henry Okulu. In fact, here in Jamia Mosque, we held with Sheikh Ali Sheikh. He was a very powerful person, and he would issue statements, and the whole government would listen, okay? So they are important people, and they play a key role. So they can exploit that particular position they hold in society, which they often do, to ensure that peace and harmony exists. All right, and in this country, we have seen every time we have had a political crisis at the national level, the first people who have come out are religious leaders to bring back sanity where things have gone south.
We are talking about advancing freedom of religion, and you can see that it's all about strengthening, it's all about supporting, it's all about advocating for religious freedom. Maybe what are the different ways or aspects of advancing freedom of religion?
One thing, for example, like what GISRA is doing, and one of the objectives of this program is actually to look at the legislative policies that are discriminative, and at the end of it also recommend for either amendments or because these policies are there, but maybe by omission or unknowingly the government is trying to stick to it, but at the same time it's something that is hurting. So GISRA is trying to advise also that perhaps these are the gaps and these are the areas that we feel that the laws need to be amended. in order for the community to remain in harmony, or in order for the community to overcome some of the issues that we're having. For example, when Muslims are complaining about IDs and at the same time about discriminations, it doesn't augur well for the government and other faiths, because Muslims are part of the faith leadership in the country. At the same time, when Akorinos are also complaining about the issues about the turbans and that, it also doesn't augur. So when we come jointly and address such issues and tell, for example, the policy makers that these are the wrong policies, or these are the policies that are hurting the faithful. For example, we've had a lot of problems, and it's a problem that have refused to go for so many years now, the issue of the dress code in schools. We've seen directives coming from as high as the CS for education, but at the same time we're still seeing the heads of school refusing to abide by that. So it means there's somewhere a miscommunication in terms of the gaps in terms of the policy between the implementers and the policymakers and all that. So these are the issues that we want addressed so that we can have a harmonized system.
You know, we talk about that conflict of dressing code in schools. Maybe you find that in schools, the reason as to why maybe they bring that, what do we call, they don't allow, let's talk about Muslims, the Muslim ladies, not to wear the scarf. You know, it's in accordance to how they take themselves. Maybe could you like blame the school or school management or the students? Because sometimes you find like these students, they tend to remove the scarf, you know, like they want to show off.
I think first of all, let's put the blame squarely where it lies, because we have a constitution that is the freedom is enshrined there of worship and all that, but at the same time we also have the school regulations and also have the Basic Education Act. So it is in this act that some of these policies are coming in, because under the Basic Education Act we know that the schools are supposed to make sure the students conform to the norms of the schools, and the schools will come up with the regulations that are ensuring that there is a smooth way of learning. But again, giving the powers now to the schools to come up with these regulations, we are talking about public schools. These are schools that these children, remember, some of them did not choose to go to the schools, but they were called to go to the schools because of their results, because of their marks, because of what. So these are public schools. These are not schools like private schools that you choose to either go or not, because a public school is a school that your marks merits that you be in that school. So you cannot again be discriminated in the school because of your dress code coming from your religion. So it's very unfair to those students. So this is what we are saying, that all public schools have to are there by the constitution, what the constitution says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me add on that issue, because it's also just been a legal issue. Under the issue of setting, you see, under the Basic Education Act, the Basic Education Act allows school managements to set standards that will be adhered to in those schools. So it gives the school management the powers to set standards. One of the standards that the school management can set is the dress code. So that's exactly what the school managements do. So if they set a standard, say that every child, for the purpose of uniformity, should not cover their head, then it means that's how where the problem of the hijab comes in. And you remember there was a case, I think there was one with Kenya High School, and then there was also, I think, one for a school in Isiolo, which by the
St. Paul's.
The school, what is it?
St. Paul's Kiwanjani.
Kiwanjani Secondary School. And you remember the legal issues that were raised, okay? They said that the law allows the school management to set standards, and that's one thing. But it's just been there. There's a time in this country when I remember the late Mutula Kilonzo was Minister for Education. There was an argument as what should be the length of the skirt. Should it be, what is decent enough? Should the skirt be below the knee or slightly above the knee? Okay? In fact, the question was, what is a miniskirt? Remember that time?
Yeah.
It has been there, isn't it? But recently, again, we agree that standards are okay to be set, but they should not be standards that infringe on the rights of others. Remember that in our universities, there was this kind of laissez-faire, my dress, my choice in many universities, isn't it? Things went south for a very long time. The other day, I heard Masinde Muliro University now, even now prescribing a dress code and banning certain, for purpose of sanity, they banned certain types of clothing in Masinde Muliro University. I think, so you see, it's an issue which is difficult, but we need to ensure that there's dialogue around that so that we come to a common ground.
Okay. Now, we're talking about the different grievances, cases that occurs normally. Let's talk about the giant, the common trend, extrajudicial killings.
Yes, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Yes.
What can you say about that?
I can assure you, many people in the name of national security. Now, you realize that for one of the biggest, in fact, the whole world has declared that one of the greatest security threats to national security in Kenya. And even, I remember during President Kibaki's time, President Uhuru's time, and even recently during President William Ruto's tenure, they stood up and said that the greatest threat to Kenyan national security is terrorism. But all of us know that when people talk about terrorism, we are talking about terrorism that's associated with Islam. So because of that, you remember, there are certain laws which were made in the name of national security, but if you look at them, basically, they had got Muslims in mind, or somehow it's Muslims who end up suffering very much. 2015, you remember the State Security Laws Amendment Act. That's an issue that where all these things happen. If you look at the so-called, what we call enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killings, actually they are sanctioned by the amendments that were made during the Security Laws Amendment Act, where I think in that amendment of 2015, security organs like the National Intelligence Security was given a blank check. In fact, it says to do anything
necessary.
NIS can do anything necessary and neutralize anything that poses a threat to national security. Then in one of the amendments they created another offense called radicalization. Section 12D of the Prevention of Terrorism Act was amended. So it created an offense called radicalization. Yeah. If you read the description of that offense, you'll be shocked. Anybody, any security officer can decide that the preaching of Friday in the mosque is promoting a belief that is a threat to national security. So when you realize, this is how we came to realize that the law was discriminative. Remember that this law of Section 12D was amended, had been there, radicalization had been there as an offense since 2015. But all along the other days when we realized that people never thought that radicalization, people thought that radicalization is only for among Muslims, isn't it? Until Shakahola happened and we had got Paul Mackenzie. Right now, Paul Mackenzie, one of the charges against him, apart from murder, he's been charged with radicalization under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. So people are asking, if this law of radicalization had been there all along, why did we allow Mackenzie to do what they have been done? Why? Because public psych felt that radicalization is only perpetrated by Muslims until Paul Mackenzie hit down.
That's really tragic for many, because so many lives have been lost. So many families feel like a part of their family is missing. Really sad, you know?
In fact, if you look at the numbers of that lost their lives under Paul Mackenzie, we are talking about 439 as of now.
Yeah.
And we are still counting.
Still more.
Yes. And yet the law against radicalization had been there since 2015. So that one simply tells you that when they made that law, they only thought that radicalization is Muslims who perpetrate radicalization. And those are some of the discrimination and policy application of policies and laws.
No.
And the Security Law Amendment Act, the 2015, also commonly known as SLA, also gave a lot of powers to the, apart from the NSIS that he mentioned, also to the National Police, because they according to the laws that they can detain the suspects for up to 60 days for other offenses, but again, the maximum they can also detain a suspect is almost 395 days. So this is like a whole
year, 360 days.
360 days.
Yes.
A whole year for suspected terrorist.
Any offense under the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
So what we are actually talking about is under this law is that a suspect who is suspected or charged under the Terrorism Act is actually the other way around. He's supposed to be guilty until he proves himself innocent, because we know like in other criminal cases and other charges, one is innocent until proven guilty, but in this case it's assumed that you have to prove your innocence. Now you are guilty until you prove yourself in that innocence, which is a very difficult situation one to find himself sometimes in. And I think that these are the laws that we are talking about that are so punitive and discriminative. Imagine somebody is put in under detention and trial maybe for 2-3 years, and again he's acquitted in the 4th year. What happens to that person? Because he's acquitted on the basis that there's no evidence, or maybe the charges are just dropped like that for 5 years. So we think that the assumption that he has to prove his innocence is what is the problem in this matter, exactly. In this law, because.
Okay, I want to cut you short because I'm being told that we cannot go on with the conversation. But a very interesting topic of discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. I think you've gone deeply to the conversation, talked about the freedom of religion, the religious minorities, the grievances that you actually receive from the public, the extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearance, conflict of the dressing code in schools, also the discrimination on the issuance of national IDs. Thank you so much. I think it is well understood on the key issue about freedom of religion. Thank you so much for joining us today here, Mr. Hassan Kulundu,
Pleasure.
as well as Yusuf AbuHamza.
Thank you so much.
Was standing in for Faisal Qasim. My name is Zamzam Ahmed. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.